Hello. Hello. Chicas. Abundance. 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 The British Museum. The British Museum. The Benin bronzes, colonial violence, and cultural restitution by Dan Hicks. ISBN 978 074 53 41767. I repeat, ISBN 978 074 53 41767. Chapter 1. The gun that shot twice. The 7-pounders are most excellent gun. They are made to stand any amount of knocking about, and also to be mounted and dismounted. At a very short space of time. They are much disliked by the natives of the country, who call them the gun that shot twice, referring to the explosion of the shells, which they consider distinctly unfair, taking place as it does so far away from the gun, and most pleasantly close to themselves. When they are they forwardly emerging out of range? Captain Alan Osariemen, Commandant of Niger Coast Protectorate Force, 1897. Along the Niger River since 1894, Alan Osariemen had seen scores of military punitive expeditions in the bush with warships, Maxim machine guns, rocket launchers, and Martini Henry rifles. In the passage above, he is describing the rifled motor loading mounted cartridge-feed gun known as a 7-pounder. Because of the weight of the shell that is fired, about 3.2 kilograms. In his popular account of the military attack on Ubini, Benin City, by Niger Coast Protectorate and Admiralty Force in February 1897. But Dragon does not record the number of casualties from the shelling of the city. Of course, of surrounding towns and villages, of incessant firing of machine guns and rockets into the bush during this 18-day attack. He does not take stock of the numbers of killed and wounded soldiers and displaced people in the many previous expeditions and attack, or reflects on the extent of death and injury. In the many as yet unplanned expeditions of the coming north and yes, as yet unnamed Opobo, Kwa, Aro, Cross River, Niger River, Patani, Kano, opening of new territories. And journeying into the interior, pacification, exerting punishment for supposed offenses against civilization. Undetained by any question of African death. In fact, came from an autobiographical adventure story in which Alan Boswell told of his own escape in the face of attack. One of just two survivors of the earlier supposedly peaceful expedition to the city in January 1897, during which perhaps 7 or perhaps 5 Englishmen were killed. And how he and his comrade had to walk through the jungle for 5 days before finally returning to safety and civilization, ready to exert a brutal revenge on his barbaric attackers on the heart of their own civilized power, the so-called City of Blood. The Daily Mail and the Times led the newspaper coverage of this boy's own yarn of massacre and heroism, onto which the February punitive expedition was the necessary response. A year later, the War Office was issuing medals commending soldiers described as members of the squadron sent to punish the King of Benin for the massacre of the political expedition. This is a book about that violent sacking by British troops of the city of Benin in February 1897. It rethinks the enduring effect of this disruption in breathing today, taking stock of its place in a wider pivotal moment in the formation of Nigeria as a British protectorate and a British colony. Explaining how the many punitive expeditions were never acts of retaliation, in trying to perceive the meaning and enduring effects of the public display of royal artwork and other sacred objects looted by Marines and soldiers from the royal courts, now dispersed across more than 150 known museums and galleries, plus perhaps half as many again unknown public and private collections globally. From the Met in New York to the British Museum, from Toronto to Glasgow, from Berlin to Moscow, Los Angeles, Abu Dhabi, Lagos, Adelaide, Bristol, and beyond. Some of these objects have a truly immense monetary value on the open market today, selling for millions of dollars. Objects looted from the city of Benin are on display in an estimated 161 museums and galleries in Europe and North America. Let us begin with this question. What does this mean? That in scores of museums around the Western world, especially written museum interpretation boards, tell the visitor the story of the Benin punitive expedition. One of the largest of this collection of violently stolen objects, trophies of this colonial victory, is the University of Oxford Peace River Museum, where I am curator of world archaeology and museums like Pitt River, just neutral containers, custodians of a universal heritage, displaying a common global cultural patrimony to an international public of millions each year. Celebrations of African creativity that radically lift up African art alongside European sculptures and painting as a universal heritage. The point of departure for this book is the idea that for as long as I continue to display sacred and royal objects looted during colonial massacre, it will remain the very inverse of all this. Hundreds of monuments to the violent propaganda of Western superiority above African civilization, erected in the name of race science. Littered across Europe and North America like war memorials to gain rather than to lose, devices for the construction of the global south as backward institutions complicit in a prolongation of extreme violence and cultural destruction. Indices of mass atrocities and iconoclasts and ongoing degradation legacies of when the ideology of cultural evolution, which was an ideology of white supremacy, used the museum as a tool for the production of authority. Tools still operating, hiding in plain sight. And so, in this book about sovereignty and violence, about how museums were co-opted into the nascent project of proto-fascism through the looting of African sovereignty, and how museums can resist that racist legacy today. It is a At the same time, a kind of defense of the importance of anthropology museums as places that the censor European culture, worldview, and prejudice, but only if such museums transform themselves by facing up to the enduring presence of empire through acts of cultural restitution and reparations, and for the transformation of a central part of the purpose of these spaces into sides of conscience. It is therefore a book about a wider British reckoning with the brutishness of our Victorian colonial history, to which museums represents a unique index. And important spaces in which to make those paths visible. The Pitt River Museum is not a national museum, but it is a British along with other anthropology museums. It is allowed itself to become a vehicle for a militarist vision of white supremacy through the display of the loot of so-called small wars in Africa. The purpose of this book is to change the course of these brutish museums, to redefine them as public spaces, sites of conscience, in which to face off to the ultraviolence of breathing colonial past in Africa and its enduring nature, and in which to begin practical steps towards African cultural restitution. Stand in the courts of the Pitt River Museum and go to the lower gallery. Walk with me to the east and stop in the still dark space. The vast silent expanse of the museum is behind us, and before us is a cabinet of sacred and royal objects, dimly lit, returning our gaze. Let us step before the glass in order to soak off the fugitive breath that this event has left behind. Yes. Hold your phone off against the plate glass of the triple veteran. The silence and stillness are not natural conditions for the displays objects on display here. They are the effects of the stealing, as when the tension interrupts transit. And as when they are the effect of the stealing, as when the tension interrupts transit, and of the fracturing, as when a sharpener shall explode at its target, and of a silencing, as when a gun is silenced. The Victorian wooden case is 9 feet high. There are more than 100 objects maintained within: bronze and wooden head, brass plaques, ceremonial sword, amulets and headgears, bosses and carved ivory thugs. One, burned at the fire of the sacking. The title read, Court's Hearts of Benin. And then an interpretation panel states, Benin is a kingdom in Nigeria, West Africa. It has been ruled by a succession of kings known as Obas since the 14th century. Benin is famous for its rich artistic traditions, especially in brass casting. In January 1897, a small party of British officials and traders on its way to Benin where was ambushed. In retaliation, a British force attacked the city and the Oba was exiled. Members of the expedition brought thousands of objects back to Britain. The Oba returned to the throne in 1914 and court life began again. The artists of Benin continued to make objects for the Oba and the courts, and rituals and ceremonies are still performed. The objects displayed here were made between the 15th and 19th century. How little has changed over the decade since February 1899, when Charles Angel Read and Omother Murdoch Readathon, the keeper and senior assistant, respectively in the Department of British and Medieval Antiques and Ethnography at the British Museum, introduced their catalogue, Antiquities from the City of Benin, by telling the same story of ambush and retaliation. Objects obtained by the recent successful expedition sent to Benin to punish the natives of that city for a treacherous massacre of a peaceful English mission, with the following notes of explanation. Captain Galway of the East Lancashire Regiment, sent on a political mission in 1892. 4 years later, a larger mission on Sophia was attacked. On his way off, the attack on his, on his way up from the coast, and a majority of the attack on of the party were massacred. This outrage led to the dispatch of a military expedition which destroyed Benin City and made accessible to students of ethnography the interesting work of native arts that form the subjects of the following pages. The museum may operate to stabilize and reproduce certain narratives and to replace and diminish others, but only ever provisionally insofar as the museum is not a device for slowing down time, but also is a weapon of its own right. Then, to what extent to what extent its interventions with time, like the brute force of field guns or manned by Captain Osariemen African forces. Were carried through the jungle by men selected for the physical strength. A projection across time and space. Where some kind of explosion is yet contained in each brass object. Within this vista, unfinished events from which the curators might be safely out of range. Having taken place so far away across time and space, another continent, another millennium, by intervening with time, decelerating memories, displaying loot. What kind of otherness has the museum brought within its glass cases? Caught between one shot and another, between the projection and the return. What do we see when the light is shone into those most hesitant, uncertain of spaces, unreserved and raw? What connection will be made when human time and space realign? The thing is still here. Each stolen object is an unfinished event. Density grows with each passing hour. The Victorian soldiers and museum curators, and these were juju fetishes whose power needs to be broken, spend time in front of these case, and the solid and the visible seems to soften as when brass is cast to blend with memory and with knowledge. At a tipping point, a new conjunction is coming about from museum and empire. What is this moment? How does loss come into view? Object from Benin Royal Court, burnt to the ground by British troop. Are displayed in the courts and galleries of this Oxford Museum. What kind of archives is this replica? Is this replica? This strategy, this Tegri performance in a windowless space today, curated to enchant a century and a half ago, built to shape knowledge, to redraw the world. Anthropologists have a word for it: myth. And myths are temporal devices. Myth serves as does music. As Clover Livingstone famously argues, to immobilize the passage of time, so overcoming the antinomy of historical and elapsed time. The technologies of the museum and the archives the museum labels the Ziploc bag, the conservation lab, are analogous intervention. They are forms of notations that signal go back to the mark. Among the outcomes of these technologies are provisional and contingent stoppage of time. So overpowering the antinomy of historical and elapsed time. The technologies of the museum and the archive. The museum label the Ziploc bag, the conservation lab, are analogous intervention. They are forms of notation. The signal go back to the mark. Among the outcome of these technologies are provisional and contingent stoppage in time, rendering fragments as objects which are wrought in cadences, a form of secondary disposition emerges in the museum. Like Cawthon's core. In 2017, Edward Weisbrand observed that the various spectacular or dramaturgical, political, and symbolic forms which he calls the masques, which he called the macabre, tended to accompany mass violence. During the 20th century, a kind of sadistic, performative self-creation that emerges hand in hand with the inflating of laws, the myth of the primitive, and violence extended across time, the weaponization of time itself. Benin City lies on a high standard plain. To the north of the Niger Delta in Edo State. Nigeria, in an era of former tropical forests. Today, it is a city of 1.5 million people and the center of a major pre-colonial kingdom of the Niger Delta. Today, which once controlled the land and river system that connected the African exterior with the maritime world. That connected the African interior with the maritime world of the Bight of Benin and the Atlantic Ocean. The city first emerged on the Bight during a period of urbanization and state formation. Along with the tropical belt of West Africa. Today, some 1,000 years ago, which saw the emergence of the great centers of Edo, Yoruba, and Akan pre-colonial states, Benin, Ife, Ilesa, Oyo, Kumasi, Belgo, with Aja and Fon State and urban politics, such as the home, emerging later from the 16th century. The city of Benin such as the home from the 16th century. The kingdom of Benin has been ruled by unbroken lines of Obas, kings, that began with Eri the First, who reigned from 1440 CE, a century before Queen Elizabeth I came to the English throne. And had its origin in the late Iron Age. Urban societies of the 10th or 11th century. The kingdom grew 11th century CE onward. When he was crowned in 2016, the current Oba, Eri II, became the 40th Oba in an unbroken line across 8 centuries. The kingdom grew in power and scope during its involvement in European and transatlantic trade from the 16th century, at first with Portuguese traders and later British and French central, among which was the slave trade. By the 19th century, Benin City was a sacred, monumental landscape of courthouses, compound, mausoleums, a center for royal and religion power, encompassed in an ancient network of dishes. The following in the compound and mausoleums, and with central repositories of thousands of unique artifacts that born weakness to the kingdom past, a kind of unseen city. The sacking of this city more than 12 decades ago involved the looting of more than 10,000 royal and sacred objects. In the artificial darkened secondary landscapes of this museum, let us understand this place not as some dazzling gathering of the flotsam and jetsam of the past, but following the lead of Colin Pass, Lawrence Oliver, as fragments of cultural history is showing to us that you actually understand what they're saying. As a visionary archaeologist, Jacques Atkins once put it, archaeologists are instrument of consciousness. And they are instruments of consciousness who are engaged in reawakening the memory of the world. The memory here, which must be recorded to allow other participants pass. And involve the looting to be no longer silenced. Is a memory of loss through extraction, of loss through extraction. We had the bronze flags and the royal, the sacred objects looted from Benin City and no longer real. The memory here, which must be recorded to allow other parts to re-emerge, to be no longer silenced in the memory of lost through extraction. Flags and other royal and sacred objects looted from Benin City, more side of the empire. Palm oil or rubber were side of empires. In fact, they form an enduring past of the ecology of militarist colonialism. The immense loss involved in the British cultural atrocities of atrocities where the bronze flag, the memory here, which must be recalled to allow other past to re-emerge, to be no longer silenced, the memory of loss through extractions. Where the bronze flags and other royal objects looted from Benin. The city was no more, the city were no more side effects of empire than palm oil or water side effects or colonial effects. Painful. The sacking of the city more than 12 decades ago involved the looting of more than 10,000 warriors and and sacred objects. An artificial, darkened, secondary landscape. This place is not some dabbling. This place, not as some dazzling gathering of the flotsam and the jetsam and the colonial past, but following the lead of Lawrence Olivier, understood as fragments of cultural history as forms. As forms of human memory. As visionary archaeologists, as Jacques Rousseau once put it, archaeologists are instruments of consciousness who are engaged in reawakening the memory of the world. The memory here, which must be put memory here which must be recalled to allow some emergence to be no longer silenced as a memory of loss through extraction, where the bronze plaques and other royal and sacred objects looted from Benin City were to this effect European throne had its eyes in the late Iron Age European society of the 10th. Every winter screen back home. Onward, which when he was crowned in 2016, the current Oba became the 40th Oba. Blah, blah, blah. In the artificial darkened secondary school of this museum, let us understand this past, not as dazzling, as the visionary archaeologist Jacqueline Herx once put it. Archaeology is an instrument of consciousness who are engaged in reawakening the memory of the world. The memory here, which must be recalled to allow past to reemerge, to be no longer silence, is a memory of loss through extraction, where the bronze flag and other royal and sacred objects looted from Benin City were no side effects of the Benin than palm oil or rubber, which side effects of Benin is in fact the form and enduring part of the ecology of militarist colonialism. In the immense loss involved in the British cultural heritage. In fact, now they form an enduring part in the ecology system. Immune loss the immense loss involved in the British cultural atrocity at Benin City is come into view. For white museums, staff in Europe and North America in the 2020s, but in truth, it has always been hyper-visible for some museum visitors. And for so many more, because cities are rising up. Unable or unwilling ever to step in their foot inside an anthropological, ethnological, ethnographic, Vokatunda, Vokakunde, or newly rebranded World Culture Museum. The new awareness among curators, refracted through a new enthusiasm for decolonization. If words if words if words in words in word, if not indeed, come not through some certain enlightenment to the intertwined history. History of anthropology and empire, or to the process of institutional racism on the institutional racism on the reading this new scrabble for descendant and diaspora African countries of the acceleration. This new scrabble for decolonization shows up a new danger of ossification or tokenism. Institutional racism on the part of either the bureaucrats or the connoisseurs of the red brick steel. This new scrabble for decolonization throws up new issues. The new scrabble for decolonization throws up new issues of obfuscation, obfuscation. Okay, it's not working. No. Since the descendants of diasporic African countries of the cancellation of outstanding debts of hundreds of varieties of missteps but all violence to push since one of the principal arguments of this book will be that the ethnological museum should not be seen as a device, an implement of weapon, just like those displayed in African carvings. Why is it? Why now? But there, the loss can be seen in a certain way. Since, why is this? Why now? Since one of the principal arguments of this book will be that ethnological museum should be seen as a kind of device or instrument that keeps or withhold since one of the principal arguments in this device is will be that ethnological museum should be seen that ontological museum should be seen as a device or service some of the principles some of the principles we became familiar with the 1980s with the idea that our knowledge of the world is shaped by society, socially constructed. Became familiar in the 1980s with the idea that our knowledge of the world is shaped by society. As the theorists used to say, back then, the study of science and technology gradually introduced material things into this account of knowledge, production, techno-feminism. Techno-feminism is better. You're all the same size. Are you on the same size now? The social agents, including objects of us, grains, kerosene, ages, Okay. The social agents, including objects as well as human, to music, business school, theory of art network, in which technology is part, makes durable and makes durable and conflicting results. Actor network, in which technology is durable and in the techno-feminism of Donna Haraway, Donna Haraway, where the overarching figure of the cyborg rose up. Those debris in material culture studies those rhetorical switching of positions between subjects and objects to suggest the agency of things in human life or the making of our bodies. And words through doing rather than just saying others. We're releasing from the early days of that place of our academic study, maybe 39th year, before academics generalize their idea of objects. Ideas of objects agency. Page 10. Ideas of object agency, page 10. Amazing world of plants and animals. Ebon reveals the secrets of nature. By High Priest Osemige Ebon. ISBN 978-34-683-67. All the trees, plants, herbs used for illustration in this book are in the Ebon Center. All the photographs used in this book, except the one on the cover page, are taken by the author with his Sony camera shot digital and Apple One Pad and 2. The cover page photograph was taken in 1987 by my first daughter, Evie, now Mrs. Osariemen. Miracles at the Ebon Center. 1. 2 eaglets have been hatched and nurtured to full-grown eagles in the center. 2. The day the heir apparent to the Benin Reverend Kingdom, Prince Eyenede Erediawa, visited the center, a boa constrictor danced for him. It was reported on the front page of the Daily Times of Nigeria. 3. One of the over 800 tortoises belonging to the center was seen eating a big snake and ate it all within 20 to 9 hours. It is still a mystery how it got the reptile, where and how it killed it, or how the snake was killed. 4. The day the late Iyase of Benin, Justice S.O. Igodalo, visited the center, a red-necked serpent led him in. Water. 5. The day Ebon addressed a press conference on the Desert Storm Iraq War, 7 owls perched on trees in circle to listen. It was said that not a bullet will be shot before the war ends. I told the press that over millions of bullets will be shot. It was reported in the first Sunday page of the Sunday Observer. The story was carried by many Nigerian newspapers. Visit of spirits. Visits of spirits are regular in the center, especially when someone close to the center or an important personality in the kingdom passes away. Some minor and wild animals visit the center at strange times. When an animal with bad intentions enter the center, it is magneted to the court of the gods of hearts and dies there. And dies there. Introduction. My first encounter with High Priest Osariemen at the center in Benin was in 1991. Then I, in company of Mr. Chooks, Egmo, a senior journalist with the Observer, had gone on a mission for him to grant us an interview. Luckily for us, the interview was granted. Then, for an interview with a witchcraft, I wanted to make him for an interview on the subject of witchcraft for a forthcoming Sunday Observer magazine. Ever since, egged on by the sheer magnificence, our inspiring emphasis of his museum. For me, I wanted to undertake a guided study tour of it. Fortunately enough, my wish was granted by High Priest Osariemen. Fortunately enough, my wish was granted by this one. I wanted to undertake a guided study of your tour. Fortunately, I couldn't do that at the beginning. Subsequently, read more. The center. To start with, the center is located at Odenede Street in Ivioto quarters in Benin City, capital of Edo State. Tall, healthy trees are spread in there. First, people. The center is located there. Tall, healthy trees are there. Impliedly, a hot, burning November sun is already shaded away from the boys. But this is March sun. Okay, sir. Manager. 5 gates leads into the center. Five gates leading to the center. However, only the small pedestrian gate and the fifth gate are always open. The pedestrian gates admits visitors as well as the high priest household staff. The pedestrian gate is the home. The pedestrian gate admit visitors as many as possible. Another fourth gate. It leads into the heart of a born center. The center allows in the high priest cars. When you stand by the fifth gate and look into the center, what you see is a well-tended botanic garden of medicinal decorative trees and plants, sharing space in one of the coolest habitats ever. A look in your right will tell you this is true by definition. A look, as you look right now, will tell me the shift space and reveal something else until it's here. Mr. Homo. The whole blight is Mr. Home. The whole blight of this garden in 40 minutes time. I need one time, please. Let's do something. I need to do something for me. The whole blight of this garden it look here, right? The sacred grove is not the only no-go area in the center. In fact, most areas in the centers are no-go areas. Come on, girl. Let's go. The flower grove is not the only one with a no-go center. The grove is not only the no-go center, in fact, the whole center itself carries a notice at the foot of the pedestrian gates for instances which screams, warning, danger, unguarded entry into this compound warns between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. at one Old Rift. And what is notice stipulates is that another public notice 30 meters from the fourth gate says plants and trees have the ability to have feelings like human. A third public notice warns, please do not feed or care for animals. The high priest Osariemen Asein kitchen is also a no-go area. The kitchen is for me alone. Traditionally, any wife of this whose turn it is to prepare his meal has an oath of allegiance to see him, have an oath of allegiance to him, which she takes before she enters the kitchen. When the high priest says an area is out of bounds, he means it. Although, according to him, a person who breaks the entire taboo means it. Traditionally, traditionally, if you are a Nigerian fool or an Orthodox religious fanatic who want to test the power, beware, you're on a suicide mission. Apart from the no-go area, there are equally other interesting things. There is a living room, the Christian room, divine kinship by him. Apart from the goal, there's a living room Christian room of divine kinship. Where you'll be regarded monarch, they are queens. Another great stories in Benin. Their anthropology will be at the receiving end of punitive high tension shockwave shared by the entire instructions. Apart from the no-go areas, there is a liquid tunnel-like apartment The entire uniqueness cried on a deep love for African art, traditional religion, and witchcraft take it to leave it. Unlike other members, African lives at the center in royal elegance. Imagine a stopover, for instance. Take yourself there. Everyone calls this work the art the collector rejected. Indeed, Mother Africa lived at a one cultural center called the Art of People. Called the Art of People, title jetted. The museum. The museum acquired aside the laws. Aside the laws, empty container. Empty container. The museum bells put more water. The museum and the gallery aside the center boost of a serving shops. Okay. Give me the water. Give me the water. The museum and gallery aside boost of a serving jobs. The museum and gallery aside, the museum and gallery aside, the center boasts of a sovereign shops where original work in terracotta, ivory, bronze, textile, brass, and leather are being performed. According to the high priest, the craft shop was set up to meet the demand of people shopping for art and unique African motif. The sovereign or craft shop shares brown. The sovereign of craft shop museum and gallery hosts his museum receive visitors and presents in all the the brother of the Read Arts and Crafts, Orion, Western Gates, 1907. To 1965. He states that Ebon for on a bed for 16 to 61 minutes and induced to dream. Such inspired dream is one of the clients. And so, a tree used to grow where the broom is. Birds sculptured with May Iroko tree used to stay at the edge of its course. The gate of life opening to the room of the gods. TJ. Opening to the room of the gods. Parts. Was the life open to rest. The gate of life open into the garden of the gods. Is this session accommodated at all the shrines? In this session, initiation rites into any of the major African religion cults are carried out in that garden. These are not all. A collection of phonogram record, books, plays, can all be removed. These are not all. In the museum gallery, aside the center, boasts a survey show where original works, terracottas, ivory, bronze of a sovereign shop are displayed. If you are a Nigerian of full or Orthodox religious fanatic who wants to test whether or not you'll be regaled with a sight of various magnificent bronze in Benin. Here you'll be regaled with a sight of various magnificent bronze in Benin, monarch, their queen, and other great names in the Benin history, as well as artwork are all listed here. These have been inside one of his closets. Within the perimeter of this same living room is a gigantic wood shelf holding assorted drinks. Inside one of his closets is a bottle of whiskey in the design of US Apollo, a space shuttle, which High Prince Osaniemen Asein reveals within the perimeter. It was revealed by God's grace. He will use in celebrating his 100 years on earth in the 2041 AD. At hand is a nearby room that is used in keeping whiskey. A nearby room that is used in keeping a nearby room that is used in keeping whiskey in the design of US Apollo, a space shuttle, which High Priest Osaniemen Asein, revealed by God's grace, will be used in celebrating his 100 years on earth. In the 2041, this had since been resorted to a permanent place in the center. At hand is a nearby Roman library of rare antiques. Its choice items include one Eniger bear that first rolled off the production line in 1974, and two Hennekens bottle with his father birth in 1963, but never drank them before he died. On the bed for 1661 minutes and induced to dream. Such inspired dream of worldly realities foretell the social experience of this client. He states that he can accurately interpret their dreams. In new concentration, bed sculptured with May Iroko tree. Oloko Newera Odibe replaced that bed over 20 years ago. The bed of life took 747 days of sweat, blood, and tears to carve from the womb of an Iroko tree. Etched on the body are over 201 ritual symbols of animals and other water entities. It serves not only for an oracular consultation and concentration, but also 201 reasons, symbols, 201 reasons, symbols, thoughts, and an oracular concentration of animals and other water entities. It serves not only for an oracular consultation and concentration, but also for healing of capital and terminal disease. A tree used to grow where the room is. When it was uprooted to give space to the room, its stem was preserved and artistically sculptured into a 5-foot-high carving with 7 throw Osariemen in Benin language. High Prince Asein Angel shows off this carving. Thereafter, he explains, in my practice, I don't build to destroy or destroy to build. Rather, I build to preserve Mother Nature in all its grandeur. This is the reason behind my decision to preserve the tree stump and spend the fortune to have it made into carving. Today, the royal chest and the statue of Queen Wumi, mother of Aaron, and several other art pieces are displayed there with a carved stem. Also, within the center is a statue of the god of arts, an ancestral effigy with an elephantine mouth, perpetually agape. Beside it is the gate of life. Those who pass through this gate will live forever. Affirms Ebon in playtimes. What he means is that a ritual prescription by him would definitely live a successful life on earth and leave behind footprints on the sand of time. Going back in time, he reveals that on the day work started on God of Hearts, a white hawk, in mystical differences to it, devoured a chicken on it, leaving behind the chicken head, intestines, feathers, and leg of this chicken breath. He says we are integrated into the work and after due consideration. The gate of life opens into the garden of the gods. In this section are accommodated all the shrines and altars of African deities. In all Africa, except the shrine to the knights or the witches, initiation rites into any of the major African religion cults are carried out in the garden. These are not all. The garden of the gods houses a choice collection of over life. They are not all. The garden of the gods houses. I'll be taking a 10 minutes break. And leave you there. Let me take this. Oh. Oh boy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the support, for the show of love. It's really nice. Thank you. Soon we'll be hitting 100 hours. It has not been easy. Thank you very, very much. So I'll be reading from the Benin Monarchy, an anthology of Benin history, in conjunction with the British Museums. I'm going to be reading about the story of the 1857 punitive British expedition of artifacts. The Benin Monarchy, an anthology of Benin history. ISBN 978-978-547-3414. ISBN 978-978-547-3414. Contents: the beginning and growth of a civilization, artifacts, antiquities, and other arts. Invasion, Part 3. Invasion, colonization, and resilience of the Benin Monarchy. Chapter 14, 295. Oh. Philip Agbona Igbafe, 1888 to 1914. Oba Osariemen Asein, the last king of independent Benin Kingdom. For several reasons, Oba Osariemen, like Shakespeare king, has been more sinned against than sinning. This is mainly because his place in Benin history and his confrontation with the influences and events will overwhelm his kingdom, leading to its captive by the British. Exile and deportation have not been critically evaluated. Historians and many writers on Benin history, with a few exceptions, which have largely been unfair in their estimate of Oba Osariemen. First, as the last Oba of independent Benin, it was under his rule that Benin lost our independence, our glory, and our ancient pride. Responsibility for this calamity has been laid at Osariemen door. Secondly, the death of acting Consul General Phillips and most of the members of his party at the hand of Benin soldiers at Ubini has been blamed on Oba Osariemen. The erroneous characterization of that incident as a massacre of the Europeans has not helped the image of the Oba. Thirdly, the lucid pictures of Benin painted by Mr. Richard Burton as far back as 1862, which were exaggerated and expanded upon by the eyewitness account of the two European survivors. Secondly, on the account of two European survivors of the January 1897 disaster have stuck to Benin, notorious appellation of the City of Blood, the City of Scars, and uncomplimentary description of huge pits filled with dead and dying, all of which held out the Benin City of Oba Osariemen as a place of barbarity and unmitigated savagery, with human sacrifices and skeletons of dead victims thrown about everywhere. Fourthly, these surviving accounts, therefore, have tended to stress the humanitarian aspect of the overthrow of Osariemen to the exclusion of all other factors. A critical evaluation of the situation will inevitably lead to a rehabilitation of Oba Osariemen image. This is partly what this chapter seeks to do. The internal political situation and Osariemen consolidation of power. Oba Ewakpe's greatest legacy to the Benin Kingdom was the principle of primogeniture, which he secured from the chiefs by bargaining away his death duty right. Atoro. In reciprocation, the chiefs with hereditary titles secured the same principle for their first son. This restored a measure of stability in the succession question at the beginning of the 18th century. In spite of this, succession struggles and war were not info factor, totally eliminated in the succession question in Benin history. For one thing, it is not always certain who was the first son. Secondly, ambitious younger sons and pretenders to the throne often fought to overthrow the principle and be included in the arrangement to inherit their father's title and wealth, while the elder son fought to defend the principle so that it worked out in their favor. This dispute periodically surfaced, leading at times to civil wars. It was for this reason that the two sons of Ewakpe himself fought over the successions. The two sons of Obanosa in the 19th century fought for the right to claim their father's throne. The second son, Ogbebo, initially defeated Erediawa, who fled to Asein Angel to avoid being executed. After a regrouping of forces, Erediawa triumphed and was crowned as Oba Osariemen. The two sons of Oba Osariemen, Ogbewekon, Oba Adolo, and Odiova, struggled for the throne. Odiova was crowned as Oba Adolo. The rebellion was crushed, and Odiova took over his father's throne. It was not strange, therefore, that the two sons of Oba Adolo, Idugboa and Orokoro, had a succession struggle. Though this did not degenerate into a civil war, it caused a lot of political dislocation and upheaval. The Oba Adolo, Prince Idugboa, crowned as Oba Osariemen, had to take firm measures to consolidate his authority over the kingdom. Oba Osariemen rounded up all disaffected malcontents and purged the city of dissident elements. Many prominent chiefs, such as Obaraye, Obazelu, and Eribo, were executed. The Oba maintained internal stability, suppressing all centers of disaffection. All those who conspired against his ascension were brought to justice. To furthermore his kingdom, Oba Osariemen, according to the traditional practices of new Obas, sent shock to all outlying areas as a usual test of their loyalty, allegiance, and it is relevant. But the conquest in a planned lighting campaign could not take place because of the January 1897 disaster and the consequent British punitive expedition against Benin. It is evident, therefore, from the rounding up of all disaffected malcontents, the purge in the city to subdue all dissident elements and outlying areas, and the attempted campaign against Agbo, that Oba Osariemen had a clear conception of his powers and a rigid determination to rule in the traditions of his ancestors. He was not prepared to surrender control of his kingdom to internal and external forces. That he lost control of his kingdom was not owing to any weakness on his part, but to insuperable external forces more powerful than his kingdom and its resources in another direction, that of commerce. Oba Osariemen policies led to concerted external pressures, which culminated in the loss of his kingdom. This aspect of his reign can now be examined. Osariemen commercial policy and British pressure on Benin. The Benin Kingdom did not come into the British official reckoning until well into the second half of the 19th century. Despite the fact that various European nations has been engaged in commercial contact with Benin for 4 centuries. During the last decade of contact with Benin, during the last decade of the 19th centuries, however, Benin fell through after a dramatic build-up of rapidly succeeding events, culminating in a punitive expedition and conquest in February 1897. The event had increased pressure to bring Benin into the sphere of consular control, were occasioned by commercial and economic consideration. In the age of revolution, when there was an urgent need for raw materials and tropical forest products, the rich products of Benin forests, such as rubber and palm produce, had to be exploited. Penetration into the urban territories was a prerequisite if access to this forest was to be gained. Freedom to exploit the forest implied the cooperation or subordination of the powerful Oba of Benin. As a ruler of an independent kingdom, Oba Osariemen was not willing to surrender his authority or grant an unconditional freedom of trade within his dominions to the middlemen and Europeans, as had been the policies of his ancestors. The Oba policy was rather the regulation of trade, which implied the imposition of trade dues or custom duties or embargoes on trade if these dues were withheld by the middlemen. This was interpreted by the consul as part of his fetish practice. The traders on the coast backed the consul in urging stern measures against the Oba. The extension and growth of trade in Benin territories and the destruction of the Oba rule were therefore for the British consul and traders indissolubly bound together. This was the full cycle of conflict between Oba Osariemen and the British in the closing decade of the 19th century. The British Museum, the Benin Bronzes, Colonial Violence and Cultural Restitutions, Dan X, ISBN 978-074-53-41767. This is a book about that violent sacking by British troops of the city of Benin in February 1897. It rethinks the enduring effect of this destruction in Britain today, taking stock of its place in a wider military campaign of regime change, underscoring its status as the pivotal moment in the formation of Nigeria as a British protectorate and British colony, exposing how the many punitive expeditions were never acts of retaliation, and trying to perceive the meaning and enduring effect of the public display of royal artworks and other sacred objects looted by marines and soldiers from the royal court, plus now dispersed across more than 150 known museums and galleries, plus perhaps half as many again unknown public and private collections globally, from the Met in New York to the British Museums, from Toronto to Glasgow, from Berlin to Moscow, Los Angeles, Abu Dhabi, Lagos, Adelaide, Bristol, and beyond. Some of these objects have a truly immense monetary value on the open market today, selling for millions of dollars. Objects looted from the city of Benin are on display in an estimated 161 museums and galleries in Europe and North America. Let us begin with this question. What does it mean that in scores of museums across the Western world, especially written museum interpretation board, tells the visitor the story of the Benin expedition? One of the largest of these collections of violently stolen objects, trophies of this colonial victory, is the University of Oxford Pitt Rivers Museums, where I am curator of world archaeology. Are museums like the Pitt River just neutral containers displaying a common global cultural patrimony to an international public of millions each year? Celebrations of African creativity that display sacred and royal objects looted during colonial massacre, they will remain the very inverse of all this. Hundreds of monuments to the violent propaganda of Western superiority above African civilizations, erected in the name of race science, littered across Europe and North America, like war memorial, to gain rather than to lose. Devices for the construction of the global South as backward. And so, this is a book about the sovereignty and violence, about how museums were co-opted into the nascent project of prototheism through the looting of African sovereignty, and about how museums can resist that racist legacy today. It is at the same time a kind of defense